And this is America's one and only Jewish Moments in the Morning radio program, heard on listeners-sponsored digital radio. Around the world, the web at NachumSegal.com, on the Nachum Segal Network, and, of course, on the beloved NSN app. The book is called From Sinai to Yerushalayim. Our Jewish journey continues. The book is written by Rabbi Nachum Segal. It's the story of Roy and Leah Neuberger. And I had mentioned for days that we're going to be speaking to Roy Neuberger on the air. I had an amazing surprise this morning when I was told that both Roy and Leah are going to join us for the conversation, which is fantastic, and we'll speak with both of them in just a moment. I want to remind you, go to artscroll.com. Make sure to use promo code radio. Again, you want to order From Sinai to Yerushalayim. Go to artscroll.com. When you use promo code radio, you get a major discount and, of course, free shipping on any amount. Well worth it to go to artscroll.com and use promo code radio. Again, the brand new book is called From Sinai to Yerushalayim. Our Jewish journey continues. Rabbi Nachum Segal is the author. It's a pleasure to welcome both Roy and Leah Neuberger to JM in the AM. Roy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Reb Nachum.
And Leah, good morning to you.
Good morning. It's an honor and a pleasure to be on the show.
I appreciate that.
Again, it ain't the first time, Reb Nachum.
That's correct. As I've been saying all week to my audience, whenever you guys are on this show, it's always inspiring and fun, and you never know what's going to happen, but it's always an amazing experience.
That is true.
So I thank both of you. If you read the book, by the way, folks, if you read the book, you'll see not only is it inspiring and fun, you never know what's going to happen. I mean, the Neubergers have a story that's impossible to convey in one conversation. It's another reason why we are strongly suggesting you get the book so you can read about their incredible journey. Roy, it's funny, but I said to myself, I don't remember the first time we spoke on the air. I'm assuming it was around 20-some years ago. And
that is correct.
Yeah, and you may recall that my theme for the opening of that conversation was basically, you were the guy who had it all. What on earth did you think you were missing from your life? And if people read the book, they'll see what I mean. You know, somebody who came from a family of means, well-known family, certainly well-respected family, and you went to the best schools, etc. So, whatever the American dream is, you were living it. And of course, I asked you in that conversation, what on earth were you missing? Why would you want to leave that type of environment? And all these years later, I said to myself, you know what? This conversation is probably going to start with the exact same question. Why would somebody who, quote unquote, has it all drift? I wouldn't even say drift. I would say would be caught in the incredible riptide of Orthodox Judaism.
Incredible riptide. That is true. Irresistible. I tell you why it was irresistible. For some reason, listen, my mother's maiden name was Salant.
Right.
That tells a lot. We didn't even know what the implications of that name were. But my mother had a Salanter neshama. My father was amazing in a totally different way. But my mother had a Salanter neshama. I grew up in this rarefied atmosphere on the Upper East Side. And
yeah, go right ahead.
I'm hearing. Should I keep going?
Yeah,
okay,
please, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. In this rarefied atmosphere of the Upper East Side, affluence, a wonderful family, as you said, Reb Nachum.
Right.
And we had it all, the American dream. But somehow, for a sensitive yid, and I must admit, I was sensitive. I am sensitive, I think. I couldn't do it. I couldn't live that way. I couldn't breathe. And, I always say, but it's really amazing. We have something we call the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, and we think, we think we know what it is. When I was a kid on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, I never heard of the Yetzer Hara, but I am telling you, I saw the Yetzer Hara in front of me. I felt like a prisoner. My life was not my own. I was controlled by something that was stronger than I was, and I was scared stiff of it.
It sounds like it made you physically unwell. It sounds like you were.
That is absolutely true to some extent. I used to have stomach pains. I felt like I was actively suffocating, and mentally, spiritually, and sometimes physically. And I couldn't, no matter how much I tried to tell myself, you're living this beautiful life, great, you have everything, It just didn't work. And I had to start looking for a way to get out of it. It was like my spiritual Mitzrayim. I was an Eved, and I had to get out of there. So I looked everywhere. Everywhere.
And it doesn't sound like, from the book, it doesn't sound like that the lifestyle was I don't know, was overbearing on you. Like, it doesn't sound like that you had parents who, had such great demands that the pressure was intense. Am I reading that wrong?
No, you're 100% correct. Really sensitive, wonderful parents. They never put pressure. They were very mental, but they themselves were lost the way I was, and it's amazing, Reb Nachum, because after we became observant, my parents responded so amazingly, so did Leah's, to our new lifestyle. They saw it, they loved it, and they became really, to a great extent, part of it. I mean, the stories are endless. They were in the book. But
the stories are incredible. So 1 second. So affluence. I would assume an incredible environment in whatever apartment building you lived in on the Upper East Side.
Very fancy.
Top school, top high school, right? One of the best high schools in New York City, right? I think that's accurate. And
that is absolutely accurate.
And basically, the choice, the run of the mill, or I should say not the run of the mill, but you had completely in front of you any school, any college, any institution you wanted to go to, likely you'd be able to go to. So you had everything in front of you, and yet you are to the point where you're willing to agree, physically suffering from some lacking in your life.
Yeah. I want to just say one thing about this background, this education. I received, you made the point just now, I went to the finer schools.
Right.
I received, it's amazing, Hashem gives us gifts wherever we live, we can't even comprehend it. I received this amazing education, how to read, how to speak, very high level, really college level courses in high school. And Baruch Hashem, I was able
and writing also, right?
Yeah, so I was able to use this later when we became observant.
Right.
This education became a tremendous asset to me, to us,
right.
and
I hear that.
Communicate.
I hear that. Look, I always say my addiction to radio as a kid certainly, and I wasn't listening to Jewish radio, certainly helped develop into what I am now. By the way, and let me ask Leah this question. I was going to ask you, but she's with us, so let me ask her. Isn't it sort of spooky, or I don't know? There's just something eerie about the fact that the two of you had such parallel lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's interesting to read that the two of you end up meeting, and you basically, I know not exactly the same, but you basically came from the same, both the same journey, the same type of background, the same educational background, and you end up meeting together. Isn't that a little bit eerie?
It's such a nice, it's a miracle from Hashem. It's such a bracha that I grew up in an atmosphere that was not as affluent, but similar in so many ways. Wonderful family and good education and so on. And we actually met in high school in 9th and 10th grade. I was 15, he was 16. And the amazing thing is that I always felt I wasn't miserable with it the way my husband was growing up, that he felt so intensely and so miserably something's missing, something's wrong. He was so disturbed by what goes on in society, and his friends used some language that he thought was not right, and all different things like that. I felt it in a different way. I felt this empty, very empty inside, and I felt there has to be something more to life than just material things. I get one thing, and then the next, and then in a few days I want something else. And never satisfied with just material things.
When did you first share your emptiness with each other? What was the first conversation of I'm just not enjoying life the way I'd like to? When did that take place?
That was really very soon after we met. We well, the first time we met, we had a very deep conversation. I had never met anyone so interesting before, and so thoughtful. And he feels deeply, he thinks deeply, and he made me more intensely aware something's missing. We need to live for something bigger than ourselves. There must be truth. We have to find it. We have to make the world a better place. And together we worked to all kinds of causes to make the world better, but still that empty feeling inside didn't go away until many, many years later when we finally discovered Torah. And then we felt, we finally found the truth after studying every religion you could think of. And all different. We didn't even believe in God in the beginning. Actually, we never had met anyone who believed in God. But then there was an experience in college where my husband all of a sudden cried out to God. So then we had hope, and we searched for so many years to find the real thing.
Unbelievable.
Nachum, maybe I just interject one comment on this. It's amazing what you said is so true, that we met and we needed each other because we had to go on this path together.
Right. How can you make a journey like this without a responsible partner? It's
oh my gosh. But the amazing thing is, Asia Connecto, Hashem brings two halves together.
Right.
My wife we're so similar and we're so different. My wife is so normal. And I am so crazy.
You're not crazy.
It's so funny.
Just intense.
Well, it's so funny. It's so funny you say this because I have this is based. I actually stole this from another radio personality. I don't think he minds, but there's something about people who are fun lovers and truth seekers. And you, Roy Neuberger, to me, is an amazing combination of fun in a good way. I mean that in the most positive way, and truth. And Leah, am I right, Leah? Is it a good evaluation?
You know what? I think this book really brings it out because it's so inspiring and at the same time so enjoyable to read.
Exactly.
And also our journeys.
There's nothing wrong with a fun life as long as it's a proper life.
I tell you, when we have a program, whether it's in, Tbilisi or Berlin or St. Louis, I can always gauge it. Like right now, I have to admit, it's fun. You feel good. When you're feeling, your neshama is like sensing the simcha of the occasion, and it's a gauge whether it was effective or not. Our journeys, which are described in this book so beautifully by Rav Nachum Segal, they were just beautiful. They were wonderful occasions of happiness. When we met Jews like on the other end of the world, and you would never think we could connect with them. We couldn't even speak their language, and in some cases we had to have a translator. And guess what? The neshamas connect with each other, and we became instant friends. It didn't matter if it was in the middle of a forest in Russia, which we had that experience described in the book.
Wait, were you both undergrads at Michigan or just graduate school?
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
Okay. So
my husband was 1 year ahead of me.
Okay. And you both go to Michigan. Not a foreign concept for Upper East Siders, as crazy as some people in our community might think that is. So you both go to Michigan. How is it when you go back today? And you still do this, right? You still go to University of Michigan to speak.
We're going in 2 weeks.
And I know people who are there. I know people who, again, it's still a very popular Jewish school with Jews from all around the country going there.
100%.
At Kol HaKavod to Chabad and other organizations that are really helping kids, from Jewish backgrounds on those campuses. But how do you feel when you see thousands, and it is thousands, of students who their lives would be so enhanced and so much better if they would be on a similar journey like you were once you left the University of Michigan? Is it heartbreaking for you? Are you able to keep a positive outlook? You're seeing a lot of Yiddish and neshamas that are really struggling, and what that struggle is all about.
Look, Chazal predicted all the Gemara says, the Navi said, the prophets say, at the end of our gullus, there are going to be so many, such terrible nisyonos, so many trials and tribulations, so many people going the opposite direction. But I want to tell you, I think what we see when we see these kids is opportunity, because all you have to do is talk to them, tell them a story. As my wife is fond of saying, we never preach. You can't preach it. Nobody wants to hear, tell me what to do.
Right.
But a story, people love. People love a story. We tell them our story, and they connect so unbelievably. Can I tell you one story from the book?
Of course. Go right ahead, of course.
So my father was an amazing person. Amazing. He lived to be 107 and a half.
And we should mention he was a Wall Street legend. He was an art collecting legend. A lot of things. He had a lot of things going on in his life.
Oh, was he a legend?
And a legend in integrity.
Right.
That is true.
Right.
A legend in integrity.
In an era when integrity was appreciated.
You said it was unbelievable. A tremendous Kiddush Hashem. My father didn't know the word Kiddush Hashem, but he lived it. Yep. And so in 2008, I published my third book, 2020 Vision. And I brought it to my father because, his son wrote it. So he's not interested in this stuff. He's going to throw it in the garbage. I mean, excuse me for that expression, but that's what I thought he would do. The next day, I used to visit him 6 days a week. Every day I would come from Brooklyn. 3 hours out of my day I spent visiting my father. And I came the next day. He's reading this book. And he was 104. He was sitting there every day reading it. He wouldn't let me talk because he's too busy reading. He read it 4 times. And then the whole series of events, Shmuel Berenbaum Zatzal told us, your father has to put on tefillin at least once in his life. As a result of this, my wife thought this is the time.
Because you were confident that even for his bar mitzvah, he had never put on tefillin.
What bar mitzvah?
I don't think he had a bar mitzvah, Reb Nachum. You don't know where my family came from.
Very assimilated.
Never observed Yom Kippur.
When we grew up,
the
biggest day of my life was December 25th. I mean, I never had a bar mitzvah till whatever.
Americans.
No Rosh Hashanah, no Yom Kippur, no Pesach, no Hanukkah, nothing. We didn't know anything. And so my father put on tefillin. Then we went to the University of Michigan.
Wait. How old was he? How old was he when he put on the tefillin?
100, a week before his 105th birthday.
And why did he agree to do it? Why did he agree to do it?
May I talk here about this a little bit?
I think you should talk. My wife is so articulate.
Thank you so much. So he read the book 4 times. He had always said in his life, religion is the cause of all the problems in the world. I don't believe in any religion. Then he read 2020 Vision 4 times. He was so inspired that he put on tefillin for the first time in his life, and he told his aide, we're going to Israel. Oh, how are we going to Israel? Well, how are we going to do that? He said, Roy knows he's going to take us. He was so inspired by the book, and it was really amazing, and it shows it's never too late for any person to make an important change in life. And I just want to mention something about University of Michigan, that Rabbi Foley Eisenberger, the JR, the Jewish Resource Center, has a fabulous program, and he has 40 students every semester, and we speak for them twice a year, usually, unless we're in Israel. We speak when we're in America. And we find that they respond so well. They're very... a story is so totally unthreatening, our personal story, and then they want to talk to us, and they want to buy books, and they want to come for Shabbos, and it's, you see the neshama is lighting up, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Okay, so listen, I want to just complete the story. So the year my father put on tefillin, we went to Ann Arbor a few weeks later to the University of Michigan, and there was a guy there, a young man, a pre-med student, Jared Spitz, and Jared Spitz heard this whole story my father putting on tefillin at the age of 104 and 51 weeks, and he woke up the next morning, and he says to himself, wait a minute, I'm 21 years old, am I going to wait till I'm 104? So he calls up Rabbi Foley Eisenberg. Rabbi, can you get me a pair of tefillin? Sure. So the next day, Jared Spitz starts putting on tefillin, which I think he's continuing to do Ad Hayom Hazeh to this very day. But not only that, he got all his friends to put on tefillin. He told them the story of my father putting on at 104, and so a whole group of people started putting on tefillin because my father put on tefillin when he was 104 years old.
How thankful are you that you wrote? How thankful are you that
and it's all in the book. It's in the book. You can see Jared Spitz's picture in the book.
How thankful are you that you wrote Vision 2020?
What?
2020 Vision.
2020. How thankful are you that you wrote 2020 Vision?
How what?
How thankful are you? You.
Oh my gosh! I mean, I must admit, I love that book. I love that book. It's such a beautiful book.
But look at the effect it had on your father.
Incredible. And I did not expect it. But as Leah said, 4 times he read it.
Unbelievable.
He sat there reading it.
What happened?
It's a beautiful.
What happened on January the 10th, 1966?
This is such a story. I can't even grasp the hugeness of this story. On January 10th, 1966, we were students at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, Michigan. We were undergraduates. We'd been married 2.5 years, and everything was falling apart. This is what you asked about before.
Right.
This was not a theory, but our life didn't work without Torah. We tried. I didn't want to be religious. And our marriage was, we had no Torah, we had no Shabbos, we had nothing.
May I just say we had never even met anyone who believed in God growing up. That's the secular circles.
So on January 10th, 1966, I felt everything was falling apart. And I was sure our marriage was falling apart. And my life was falling apart. I mean, I can go into details, but this was not. I was a graduate student. I was not. My brain was not functioning, and I woke up that night in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., and I started crying, and I just saw my life is, as they say, garnished mit garnished. It's all. I've tried everything. There is no solution. There's nothing I haven't tried. It's all over, and I literally believe, I'm not exaggerating, that if something hadn't happened to save my life, our life, I would have spent the rest of my days in a mental institution in a padded cell. I mean, I'm not joking. I'm not joking. That's how bad it was. And then I'm crying, and all of a sudden I get this crazy thought in the middle of the night in Ann Arbor, Michigan. 1966. Wait a minute. Maybe could there be a God? A God? What? God? Are you kidding me? That's crazy. And then it just hit me. If your life is falling apart, you need God. You need God. God, help me, save me, get me out of here. And all of a sudden, I accepted the possibility that God exists, and that thought alone changed our entire life.
How did your wife react to that?
It was a process of years.
We both were so moved by his experience that we felt hope. We felt so much hope, and that's when we started to study all different religions, not Judaism, because we'd gone to our friends' bar mitzvahs that were just a party, and no, they never went back to synagogue again. So we thought Judaism was materialism, and we need more, but it took many, many years till we found all these other things were not the thing, not true, and that we thank God we heard Rebbetzin Esther Youngray speak, and
8 years later
we were on the path to living a Torah life.
So it's 8 years of
that's it. There's nothing else out there. It's only Torah. That's it.
So it's 8.
Everyone should appreciate growing up with it. And we had to struggle for it.
Well, that's why these conversations with you both always start with the way I start, because me being from birth, I sometimes wonder why would someone want to gravitate toward this lifestyle if they don't have to, so to speak. And I'm still asking this question.
It doesn't work, baby.
And I'm still asking this question.
Nothing else out there.
And I'm still asking this question.
Thing.
And I'm still asking this question at my age, which is pretty remarkable, frankly. But if you had to,
Nachum, could I just add to that story briefly, because of the most amazing, miraculous thing happened in the last few weeks related to January 10th, 1966, that I'm just shaking from it. It's unbelievable. I later found out that January 10th, 1966 was the 18th day of the month, the Jewish month of Teves. And then in the years from then until now, this very day, during the month of Teves, especially around the 18th day, miraculous things kept happening to us year after year after year.
Well, that's a couple of weeks ago.
Let me tell you, this is beyond belief. I mean, among other things, we had a huge car crash, many years later.
Yeah, I read about that.
Our car was totaled on the Major Deegan Expressway at 12 midnight.
With you in
coming
it.
Back from with us in it,
right.
And nothing happened. We walked out without a scratch. And it was one of those crashes where there are like fire engines and ambulances and police all over the place. And the cops were looking at us like, why are you alive? I don't get it. And nobody could believe it, but we were just alive. We were unscathed. Nothing happened to us. The 18th of Teves, 57 years to the day after January 10th, 1966, the book From Sinai to Yerushalayim went on the press at Art Scroll. To the day, 18th of Teves, 5783 this year, two weeks ago, the book went on the press. And I'll say also, what is 57 years? 3 times 19. The Jewish calendar is a 19-year cycle.
Right.
That's the year the English and Hebrew days coincide. For the third time since 1966, the English and Hebrew days coincided.
Right.
This year on January 10th, and it was the 57th anniversary of the day that most incredible experience happened to us in Ann Arbor, Michigan.
Pretty amazing. The story of Roy and Leah Neuberger. They're both with us live via telephone. The book is called From Sinai to Yerushalayim. Our Jewish journey continues. Speaking of Art Scroll, go to artscroll.com. The book is written by Rabbi Nachum Segal. From Sinai to Yerushalayim, go to artscroll.com. Use promo code radio for your major discount and free shipping. All right, let me ask both of you. And I know it's impossible to do this in a minute, but hey, we're going to try our best. If you and read the book, everybody. If you want to read about the incredible effect that Rebbetzin Jungreis had on thousands, but here are 2 examples, read the book. If someone were to ask you, describe the effect of Rebbetzin Jungreis. What was Rebbetzin Jungreis all about? I know it's impossible to do it in 60 seconds, but how would you encapsulate what the experience with her was all about, Roy?
Okay, I will tell you, Dvar min Alev, words from the heart enter the heart. When we saw Rebbetzin Jungreis in Newburgh, New York, in March or April of 1974.
Which really wasn't supposed to happen, by the way, folks. It wasn't really supposed to happen.
Not supposed to happen.
And it happened that she got up there anyway.
That's the whole story. It's in the book. It's all in the book how it happened.
Right.
But I describe it like little soldiers of words were marching into my heart. We're sitting there. We'd never been inside a synagogue in our lives before, and she started speaking, and all of a sudden we're hysterical crying. She got to our neshama. We've seen it with thousands of Israeli soldiers in Israel. The same thing in Hebrew, in English, in Yiddish, whatever language it is. She had a gift to penetrate the soul.
Leah, how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's really it's. I think Yisrael described it very beautifully. Her emotion together with words of Torah were just overwhelming. And we had studied in the finest universities, and we'd heard all these famous professors and speakers, and this was just a totally, totally different experience. And as we found when we started to study with her and we learned Torah, we'd both been English majors in college. My husband got his master's. I got my bachelor's there. And we used to analyze all the different books, but it's nothing compared to Torah, because Torah has levels and layers and layers and layers of meaning that a human being could never accomplish, and it just was so amazing to follow up with the going to her Torah classes, which was a very big deal because we lived so far away, but we made a 2-hour drive each way.
You literally would travel.
To go to the classes, and we were finding out who we are and how we should live. And then from experiencing that, we felt like before we were dead, and now we're alive.
You literally drove 2 hours to be at her classes, and then you were all in. You literally moved to her neighborhood, became prominent members of her husband's shul, right? And then end up being machatanim with the family, right? I mean, you literally.
It's too amazing to contemplate. Our daughter's married to her son.
Say it again. I'm sorry, Leah.
Our daughter Yafa is married to Usher Anshel Youngreis, Rebbetzin Youngreis' son.
I mean, talk about being all in. I mean, what were you saying, Roy? How thankful? What'd you say?
It's unbelievable that every detail, when you look back at every atom, every millisecond of your life, you realize that Hashem is holding your hand the whole time. Whether it's tzaras, whether it's simcha, it's all. I mean, I could go on and on. I really could, but we have 5 hours, right? But it's unbelievable. There's no detail that is not absolutely miraculous. And, even when you don't know Hashem exists, he knows you exist, and he's holding your hand the whole time.
What would your parents say about their grandchildren?
Our parents, all of them thought we were nuts when we told them there's a letter from my brother in this book which describes the exact experience, tells you exactly what day he was sitting there when I told our parents we're changing our lifestyle, and he was angry. He thought, here goes Roy again, off the deep end, another crazy scheme that's going to last 3 months. And at the end of the letter, it so beautifully says, I must admit I was wrong. But my parents and my wife's and Leah's parents, after a while, they saw how normal our life was.
What would they say about their grandchildren? What would they say in 2023
about them?
A lot of them.
They knew them.
They knew them. The grandchildren were the biggest Kira machers over there. I mean, that did it. They saw such beautiful, Adela grandchildren, beautiful grandchildren, treated them with so much respect
and great-grandchildren.
And great-grandchildren. Unbelievable. That had a huge effect on them. Their peers didn't have families. The people that we went to school with from our own life, I don't want to talk about the mess their lives became.
Are there people in this country who, when they are struggling, as they become more religious and their parents are not exactly on the same page, do they contact you to ask advice about that?
Oh, always. We're always talking about these things, and there are many stories in the book about there are people who had no support. We had people live in our home. Rebbetzin Youngreis would send us people. We had people who lived for years in our home, who came from families, you name it, all over the place, and they lived with us. And for years and years and years, just visited.
Are you ever asked to speak to the parents?
I mean, we speak for everybody.
No, but are you ever asked
sometimes
to speak directly to the parents? I'm curious what you would say to the parents in a situation like that.
It's not so easy. I mean, it depends. I mean, there are
a few times, yes.
There are parents I'm in touch with right now from old. A whole complicated situation, but yes, I mean, but it's not easy. It's not so easy to speak to someone who doesn't want to hear, who doesn't want to hear. That I must admit I'm not so good at that, because they don't want to hear you. So your words, Rebbetzin Youngreis was better at that than I am. But when there's a tiny opening, you can speak to them. And we are in touch with parents.
Can I just say something about this? That Rebbetzin Youngreis taught us, and I think this is very important for all Balei Tshuva to understand that to give respect and to honor the
Right.
parents, to respect them, and be good to them, and then it just does wonders. We always worked very hard to honor and respect our parents, and then they saw how our children and grandchildren were growing up with also being so kind and respectful, and they saw that a lot of their friends' grandchildren were not like that, and it made a big impression, and they adored all our children and grandchildren.
Do I have time for a story, or should I not say anything?
No, go right ahead. I have something I want to get to, but go right ahead.
Okay, so I just want to tell you a story about my mother. I mean, we were zoche to have a kvura. All our parents had Jewish burial,
wow.
Which, believe me, without going into the details, are in the book, but it was not simple at all.
Sure.
We had the help of Rebbe Elchanan Zon, Shlita, the head of the Chevra Kadisha of Queens, right. The head of the National Chevra Kadisha. He helped us all the way. He held our hands, sometimes literally, my hands anyway. But I want to tell you, my mother... it's a story. Some of it I can't even say in public, but it was an amazing story how all our parents merited kvura. On my mother's first yard site, I went to the cemetery. I was the only member of the family there. I davened there. I said Tillim, and I left. As I left the cemetery, left my mother's kever. I said to Hashem, Hashem. Excuse me. I really think that Mother is an olam ha'emes with you, and that if she is, I think I had something to do with it. Hashem, I'm just wondering, if I could get, like a little report, what's going on over there. So, following this somewhat crazy chutzpah conversation with Hashem, I went home. I didn't say a word to anybody. The next morning, our daughter Miriam, who now Hashem lives in Yerushalayim. Miriam was single then. She woke up. Abba, I had a dream last night. Grandma came to me in my dream, and she was so happy. The next morning, Hashem answered my tefillah.
Oh, boy. My
mother appeared to our daughter. I hadn't said a word. Not to me, to our daughter. And she was shining. She was so happy.
Unbelievable.
That tells the story.
It certainly does. Roy and Leah Neuberger are with us live via telephone. The book is called From Sinai to Yerushalayim, written by Rabbi Nachum Segal. The close connection that both of you now have to Israel, is that all from Rebbetzin Jungreis? I would have to assume, based on the way you've described your backgrounds, that likely your families did not have much to do with Israel. Was this all because of her, or were there other circumstances as well?
Leah, could I answer this one?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. An amazing thing happened to Nachum. Every Jew loves Israel. It's amazing. We just spoke to somebody. Every Jew, I think, the more they feel, the more they want to be in Eretz Yisrael, and especially as conditions become more difficult and chaotic outside Israel, and I'm in Israel also, but people are wanting more and more to live there. We always wanted to live there. We have had a place in Israel for over 20 years where we would go back and forth. We had an apartment. We had a place. And during Corona, before Corona, February 2020, 3 years ago, we went to Israel for a simcha. And we were going to stay till after Pesach, like 6 weeks or whatever. By the time Pesach came, there was Corona in the world. Right. The planes were grounded. The airports were closed. We could not leave Israel for 15 months. We didn't leave Israel. We couldn't leave for 15. We didn't see our American children for 15 months. And legally, we had to make Aliyah. If we want to be legal, have legal status there, they wouldn't renew our tourist visa. So we made Aliyah, and
Mazel tov.
Then, and I just want to say that Pesach, when we were there, I realized something amazing. You could want to go to Israel, but it's not so simple. It's not so simple to move and change your whole life. You have a whole life outside Israel. And I realized, it says in the Haggadah, Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim b'yad chazaka. And I felt Hashem took us out, brought us to Eretz Yisrael, enabled us to make Aliyah b'yad chazaka. It was beyond us, circumstances. And then the Haggadah continues. B'yad chazaka zu hadever. This is a dever, the plague. It says in the Haggadah, the plague. This is the b'yad chazaka. And that's exactly what happened to us.
Corona.
The plague of Corona was the instrument through which Hashem took us out and brought us to Eretz Yisrael.
So just back to my original question. The first, I mean, you already said every Jew loves Israel, which I get it, and that's a great answer. But does she still get the majority of the credit, or?
Excuse me for saying that, Yisrael, you did not answer the question, and I would.
Mechila, you answer it. I told you we're a team.
Okay, the answer is the first time we ever went to Israel was with Rebbetzin Young Rice. She should Shalom.
Our first Shabbos.
That was in the spring of 1975.
No, before.
74.
1974.
Yeah, after the Yom Kippur
Oh, you're
War.
right. 74. I'm sorry. 74. Exactly. 74. So we had never been interested in going to Israel. We didn't know, and I didn't feel any connection. And we even thought that the Jews stole it from the Arabs. We knew nothing. And then we were learning Chumash with Rebbetzin Young Rice, Bereshis bara Elokim, and the famous Rashi that why should the book of laws start with the creation of the world? Right. And he says, hold up this book, and it shows that God created the world. He could apportion the land to whoever he wished, and he gave the land to Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and to their descendants, and that's to us. So we were very excited to go to Israel from that time. So the first time we ever went was with Rebbetzin Young Rice, and it was a huge, amazing, wonderful experience.
Life-changing.
And that's what made us want to go back and back and back. We went many times with her group, and then we went many times on our own later, and then eventually bought an apartment. So it's definitely Rebbetzin Young Rice who inspired us to love Israel, to go to Israel, to appreciate Israel. And Baruch Hashem, that's the story.
Are you speaking to us today from Israel or from the United States?
We're in the U.S. We came in to see our children, and we also came in to promote the new book. So we're here for a while. We're here for speaking in many places and doing book signings. And
is your tour sold out, or can people still schedule you guys on this book tour?
We still have time to schedule.
We're here for this.
We go
we're adjusting our schedule.
We go where we're needed. We're going to be speaking locally. We're going to be speaking in Houston, Texas, and probably in Louisville, Kentucky, and Cincinnati. That's Hashem. We're on the go.
Pretty amazing. One of my listeners writes to me that they believe that Roy is a truth seeker and a fun lover, but they want to know if he's truly a Michigan guy. Does he hate Ohio State? Roy, what's the story with that? Do you hate Ohio State or not?
we spoke at Ohio State, and we love every Jew.
That is very funny.
Just trying to establish your credentials here from Ann Arbor. That's all
right.
Hopefully the people in Ann Arbor didn't hear you say how much you enjoyed your visit to Ohio State. Let's hope. So if there's somebody out there, Roy, who is frustrated with the price of yeshiva tuition, who is frustrated with the costs of being an Orthodox Jew, who is frustrated by having to decide to what degree they want their family to grow because of the difficulties that sometimes families face in our community. And they may, God forbid, build some type of resentment toward our way of life. What would you say to them?
Wow. Amazing question. I would put it like this, that it's not an easy time we're living in. There are huge, huge challenges. But I would say like this, I believe we found out in our life, Hashem takes care of us. Hashem holds our hand. The more we invest in him, the more dividends we're going to get, the more everything we're going to get.
That says it all.
And he's going to take care of us in ways we cannot imagine.
Yeah.
We have seen miracles when we've seen times when things seemed impossible,
right,
and then Hashem helped us.
If I could add to that, do what you have to do. because obviously one must try to do what they need to do, and at the same time put your full faith in the one above.
That is 100%. Listen, we have to use our brains.
Right.
Hashem gave us brains. To be smart. We can't do anything foolish.
And our work
but
ethic,
we have to believe in Him.
We got to take advantage of our work ethic and do what we need to do. But in the long run, we need to know that we are puppets in a scene that He is controlling from above and doing. Go ahead, Leah.
Sorry, and many times we've seen that things that seem to be a disaster and terrible,
right.
and just the worst thing in the world, and no good could come from it, and then later on we see good did come from it, and in a long when we'll all see that all the good that it's all really all good, but it's when you're going through the tough times, it's not easy to feel it.
Yeah, no question about it. Can't thank you both enough. Everybody out there, Rabbi Nachum Seltzer has a great brand new book. It's called From Sinai to Yerushalayim, Our Jewish Journey Continues. It's about our guests this morning, the story of Roy and Leah Neuberger, written by Rabbi Nachum Seltzer. Go to artscroll.com. Make sure to use promo code radio for your discount and your free shipping. Go to artscroll.com, order From Sinai to Yerushalayim, and again, make sure to use promo code radio. Proud to call him a fun lover and truth seeker, and proud to call both of them good friends of ours here at JM in the AM. Roy and Leah, I cannot thank you enough for joining us this morning.
Reb Nachum, we all talk about fun. You are fun. We love whenever we talk to, whenever we speak to you. We love it.
It's a true
we
pleasure.
Love you.
Thank
a
you
true
so
pleasure.
Much. Thank you so much. And
you're an amazing person, Reb Nachum. Hashem should bless you and give you siyata d'shmaya ad mei v'esrim ad Mashiach. And together we should see the Gula Shalema very soon.
Amen.
And that bracha goes to all the listeners here.
Amen.
And Klal Yisrael. Amen. Hashem. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. Roy and Leah Neuberger on a very, very special Thursday morning here at JM in the AM.